Usually I do this with Terry Peters, who we co-chair the lecture committee, along with a group of students. Some of the students are here tonight. I'm not sure if I see them, but perhaps they'll show up and help out a little bit. So tonight we're really lucky to have Hiroto Kobayashi joining us. And he's normally in Japan, but recently he was nearby. And so we took advantage of his presence to hold a pretty quick and fast workshop, and also to ask him to give this lecture tonight. So we're kind of lucky. We're especially lucky, I suppose, because we were almost finished for the term, and just by chance it worked out. So I know everybody has quite a difficult schedules at this time of year, but I think we just managed to squeeze in one more lecture. So right, I already mentioned that this is the last lecture. I think I should also thank our sponsors before I get too far into things. So thanks very much to the Ontario Association of Architects and the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada. We're very grateful to have the support to carry out these events. So for those who have not been here before, I'd like to just quickly put the evening's discussion in context. So basically the lectures are treated as a chance for us to extend the discussions that we have inside of all of our classes and studios and so on, and also to have a chance to, all the people that we're talking about actually can come here and be in front of us and actually bring a piece of the world outside into our classes. And hopefully that allows us to extend our thinking and hopefully stimulate new ideas amongst the students. This term, the theme that we're working with is basically offices that work in different and unique ways. And each of the lecturers in the last semester in this one, the practices are quite different, and each of them are different in quite different ways too. So none of them are working differently in the same way, which makes sense, and that's kind of a handful to say. And Hiroto is again another example who's working a completely different way, doing quite different things. And so we're quite lucky to have someone again to show a different way of practicing. So before I introduce Hiroto, I'd like to share our land acknowledgement. Toronto Metropolitan University sits on lands now known as Toronto, but which have been inhabited for millennia by many Indigenous nations and people. It has become our tradition to begin our meetings with a land acknowledgement which recognizes the enduring presence and resilience of Indigenous peoples in our area. But it is also a reminder that we are all accountable to these relationships. Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory. The dish with one spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and to protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and people, Europeans, all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. And it is in this spirit and on behalf of our university and our faculty that I welcome you all to TMU and to our department. So just a few announcements too, just logistically. So in terms of time, Hiroto is going to speak for about an hour. And we'll have, that means we'll have enough time to have about 20 or 30 minutes of questions and answers. If you can, just keep track of the question if you think of something while he's speaking, and we'll have a period at the end and we can use a microphone so everyone can hear your questions. So having said that, let me briefly introduce the speaker. So we kind of have two introductions. One is the one that I took from his website, which says all of the stuff that he's done, which sounds really cool. And then I'd like to shortly give a brief introduction just because I've known Hiroto for a really long, well, not that long, a bit long. So I'll start with the one that's official. So Hiroto Kobayashi studied architecture and urban design at Kyoto University and then went to Harvard University Graduate School of Design. He worked with Niken Seke, he worked with Norman Foster and partners as an architect. He was a Fulbright visiting researcher at the GSD in 1999 and 2000, where he completed his doctoral dissertation on the traditional Japanese community form, which is called Cho, and received his Doctor of Design there in 2003. So if that is not enough, Hiroto also is a founding partner of Kobayashi Maki Design Workshop, an architectural and urban design firm based in Tokyo since 2003. And he was amazingly also a representative of Skidmore, Owings and Merrill in Japan from 2003 until I guess 2022, so until recently. So alongside his work in practice, Kobayashi studies social contribution of architecture and urban design. And he spent the last several years working on rural revitalization and disaster response. Most recently, his work focuses on the development of a self-build construction system using plywood that makes use of modern construction technology, but needs no technical skills to assemble. This work, the veneer house, which we'll probably hear about a little tonight, is used in disaster relief and children's education and has been applied around the world, beginning with its first use just after the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011, which is actually a really good segue into my personal comment. So I've known, I guess I started teaching at Keio University where I first met Hiroto in Tokyo. I probably started, and then within a few months, the earthquake struck, and it changed everything. Perhaps Hiroto will share the same comment and point of view. But in the subsequent years that I was working at Keio, Hiroto was, of course, always around. But I think the thing that I kind of started to know him for was he was always doing impossible things. Like he would set these goals and then spend time figuring out how to get there. And, it seems so hard, and you always wonder, like, how can you even conceive that this is something you can do? Do you have to plan all of it? And he said, well, let's just start. And that's probably also the theme of tonight's lecture. I think it's quite amazing, what you can do if you just start, without, everything sort of planned and figured out on the way. And I think it's also a really good quality, especially in our times. So having said all of that, I'd like to stop talking and allow Hiroto to continue from there. So please.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Will. I'm Hiroto. Thank you very much, Will. Yes. How many years? So 12 years, I think. So I miss you very much. He left Japan. Now he came here, right? So I just followed him, and then I'm here. Tonight, I'm so honored to have a chance to talk in front of you. And I'm now practicing at the Kobayashi Maki Design Workshop. I'm sorry, just my firm name. Yeah, Design Workshop in Tokyo. And also I'm teaching at Keio University. Keio University is the oldest university in Japan, but then architecture education started just 25 years ago. So very new. And the faculty members very limited. So I think maybe that is one of the beauties of Keio, because we can start something new. And then, of course, we can learn a lot from history and from culture, but we can do something interesting by ourselves. So tonight, I would like to talk about, the title is Do It Anyway, Place Tectonics and Time, Design Build Action Toward Participatory Architecture. So, which is about a design build method by building a space at 1-to-1 scale. So always, at an architecture school, you make 1-to-10 model, 1-to-5 model, but usually you do not make 1-to-1. But I think making 1-to-1 is a mock-up is very important to really understand the quality of, quality of material and the structure and everything. So I try to show you tonight, several cases which actually I try to tackle. So today's talk will place emphasis on material resourcefulness, tectonic inventiveness, speed, and a potential reconsideration of how we design and then build in a time of climate change, natural disaster, migration, war, and other unpredictable issues. Also, I would like to discuss how to maintain a community by making space together. The projects I would like to show for now are experiments in responsive and spontaneous architecture to provide a user with a sense of comfort, privacy, homeliness, and community. This is a very shocking photo, which actually I took just after the Great Earthquake, exactly 12 years ago. then I would like to tell some themes, key themes from now. So one is unpredictable future, unpredictability. So in an unpredictable and volatile era, we are experiencing an ending series of natural disasters and then anachronistic wars affecting our daily lives. The places we inhabit may be unstable or mobile, a trend that will accelerate in the future. And we are expected to quickly adapt to a changing environment. So this happens, and I was in Tokyo, and then shook like this. And actually, in Tokyo, if you live, maybe he experienced that almost every month we have earthquake. And then, again, right? But this was different. I was first time scared by earthquake in Tokyo. Then this Tohoku, this area is some like 300 kilometers away from Tokyo. So really devastating. So you can see some buildings are still standing, but these are all, occupied by houses, but all gone. So this was shocking, but then this was a chance for me to really think about what is architect's role, for this situation. Then another important theme is responsive design. So in this situation, we have to ask these questions. Do ephemeral, temporary, or transient architecture artifacts work? How could forms and techniques of buildings be adjusted flexibly and then spontaneously to adapt to new situations? How these tectonic strategies can respond to the specificities of place? And can these architecture ideas be used to address pressing contemporary problems, including housing instability, economic inequality, and climate change? So this one we built in Slovenia for the Syrian immigrants. And I can show you this one about the detail, but this is a temporary building. And then it is one of the other vinyl house. Another one, the sense of belonging. So self-drive construction are to be investigated for its capacity to generate a sense of belonging and attachment to the physical artifacts of a space. On the left-hand side is Myanmar. We built a learning center for kids. And on the right-hand side, Mr. Watanabe, I can just tell you later. And another one is a temporariness. We should examine and experiment with materials considering the constraints of time, ease of assembly, and cost. Typical building materials will be re-examined in addition to waste materials and other atypical materials. So we should study and invent architectural detail that circumvent the conventions of permanent installation and bonding. You can see these two, both Ise Shrine. So maybe some of you know about Ise Shrines, one of the oldest shrine in Japan. It started 7th century, so more than like 1,350 years already in the history. But then building is very new. Why? Interestingly, this two sites, actually there are many shrines like this in that area, but then, for example, like this one is completely new. And then this one is 20 years old. And then just after this, the god that resides here moved from here to here, and then this will be dismantled. And then keep this space open for 20 years. And then after 20 years, they built exactly the same one here, and then God again moves, and this will be demolished, dismantled. So already 62 times they did. And the next one coming 10 years. So please wait another 10 years, right? But that beauty is that exactly the same one they built every 20 years. Why? Because at that time, people, like olden times, people lived just only 50 years. And then they would like to, or they have to convey the techniques of the buildings and then spirits of the buildings to the next generation, next carpenter. That's why old carpenter, teach how to do that to a younger carpenter. So 20 years is the best timing, to rebuild and then dismantle and then rebuild, right? So you can understand how they built this building, 7th century, even now. That's a really amazing. And so idea is the spirit is very sustainable, very eternal. But then the building itself is very temporary, every 20 years. And interestingly, after this will be demolished but not discarded. And that this can be used, each part, can be used another 20 years in another shrine. Then after that, another shrine for another 20 years. So total 60 years, these materials is used. Then meanwhile, they put the new, Japanese spruce, and it grows like this. So it's very sustainable. So trees lifespan is 60 years, and then people's one 20 years. So always like we tend to think like a preservation is like one thing and then keep it, forever. But in Japan's case, more like a not artifact, but more like a spirit or like a technique can be preserved and then, succeeded to the next generations. So I like that kind of idea of temporalness. This shelter we made for Kumamoto earthquake, and it can be used only, it was used only 2 weeks, for some family. They live here and then sleep here because they couldn't leave the house. But then the house is dangerous. That's why they couldn't sleep there. So we assembled this one and then they used it. Then after that, dismantled and then moved to other place. So idea of like architecture, we tend to think that architecture is permanent, but it's not. Maybe doesn't have to be. Another one is a hands-on method. So we are focusing on, fostering in-person interaction with the final product, as well as the assembly process of materials and their connections. So this one is in Indonesia, I will show you later. And then this is the first veneer house building. Making things by hand is very important. So I just would like to stress this part, tonight. Then old and then new technology. So although technology and then building methods have changed over time, and then computer and then digital world, but then we tend to think, we tend to seek novel practices. This doesn't mean that traditional methods will be abandoned. So this one is a Japanese wooden joinery. And actually I found that Paul's studio, they are doing this and they're pretty much familiar with this one. And I'm so impressed. Sometimes I cannot know how to do this, right? But then long time, it takes, to establish this one, but we can learn from here, of course. Then noting reference. So these are great reference and then we can learn from old wisdom. We later can explain, but these are the sort of a joint which we started to think and then made one-to-one. So from now on, I can show some three folds. One is veneer house project. And then veneer house, as Will said, that we started 12 years ago and after earthquake and how to respond to that situation. So I, at that time, was in charge of the studio, graduate student studio. So we discussed, students and then what to do. And maybe they need a community house that time. Half year later, after the event, then already like a temporary houses are provided. Actually, we have, as you know, prefab house in Japan, very popular. So prefabricated housing companies, they provided many houses in a day or two. It's really surprising. So I really appreciate their sort of way of making, very quick way. But they didn't have community house. And then the issue here is the community there, local, all just dispersed. And then people, living in different places. And then they have to live in some village, new village, and the government provided. But then they didn't know each other. That's why to make a community house and then to provide sort of a common space, which was a very big issue. So I would like to introduce some characters of veneer house. One is very affordable because we use very thin wood, which was thinned in the forest, and a very young tree. And then we peel and then make a sheet of veneer. It's so-called veneer. It's a thin wood sheet, and then pile like this with glue. that is a plywood, right? So plywood is cheaper, and then also is very good because coming from nature. And also the second one is a self-built, which is very important. These are fishermen, and then they build their own house. Actually, we asked them to do that. So self-built is, of course, it's cheap, but then more than that, I found that value. Then third one is a digital fabrication. Of course, CNC router, yes. And then you have great one. So if you learn how to hammer, how to chisel, carpentry, as a trainee, it takes like 5 years, 6 years to learn how to chisel, right? But here, Philip today is here, you also can teach, and then you guys can learn very fast, and then you can cut the very detailed sort of. I'm going to show you this one later, but so this fabrication technique is really helpful. But at the same time, some people just ask me that if students really go towards this direction, they tend to forget the traditional sort of technique. I first thought so, but then I found that the students like these, my students, they are interested in making things by machine. They got interested in traditional technique too. And then they just go there, carpenters, a factory, and then learn how to do that. And one of the students, after graduation, they enter that company and they work as a carpenter. So really interesting. So this actually opened the window. So digital fabrication, advanced technology, really helpful to really let them understand that what's the beauty of making things. Okay, and lastly, but not least, community building or like a maintaining community is very important. So my talk today is not only just making things by yourself, by myself, but more like a community, but making things together, which is very important. And then people got interested and got involved in making things together. They feel a sort of sense of ownership, and they nurture a sense of belonging and then community. So I really would like to pursue this direction. So those are the characters, plywood, veneer house. So I would like to introduce like 2 techniques, very basic technique, and then a little bit advanced techniques. One is this one, cutting a notch, this like this, and then like this, and then insert each other, right? And then make a box. For example, sometimes like this time, like a beam or column. Yeah, that kind of thing. And another one is using CNC router and cutting a little bit complicated joint there. Of course, you can cut by hand, but it takes time. So there are 2 basic ways. And then this one, you can assemble, but you need nails to fix everything, right? So you need nails or like screws. But this one, because of the wedge, you don't have to. So everything 100% only wood you can make. And then this comes, of course, from the old wisdom of Japanese carpentry. The reasons why they established this one is that long time ago, olden times, steel is very expensive. That's why they couldn't use. That's why they started to think how to fix everything using only wood. That's the thing. So first case, this one, it's Minami Sanriku area, really devastated by tsunami. And then we were asked by him to make a community center. He came from Tokyo, and he worked for the community, and he found that means that 200 houses just above this hill, they live, in that just above the hill, temporary houses. They need a community house. So he just proposed us, okay, why don't we make like 100 square meter community house? We were supposed to build just only 10 square meters, a small mock-up, but then all of a sudden it became 100. It's big. So it's a big challenge, but can you see this is concrete foundation? So it used to be a house here and a house there, but all washed away. So this is very close to the ocean. And you can see some darker color here, plywood, because this one was the first one. And then we got the damaged plywood from one company. There, actually, I worked with them, and unfortunately, their factories. Actually, this area is very famous for engineering wood manufacturing in this area because that trees. There are many trees and mountains, and then I had some meetings 2 months before the earthquake, but then I went there as office all gone. Then piles of plywood all damaged by the tsunami. And then because of that, it's getting darker. So they kindly offer us a very cheap price on this one. So we use that damaged plywood. Okay. Then students, this time, we took our students to this site and during the semester. So we took a night bus on Friday night from Tokyo and takes like 4 or 5 hours. Then work like Saturday, Sunday, and then Sunday night we take bus to coming back to Tokyo almost every week. It's crazy, you know. But they were so motivated. That's why we did. And then every time like 6, 7, 8 students, went together and worked there and then coming back. But to do this, we had to get some money. So we held a lot of parties, welcoming many people and collecting money. That time, crowdfunding we didn't have. That's why we just held a lot of parties, right? KO, our university, is very good at having parties. So here, you can see some process of assembly. And we just insert and then make a box, but we have to attach to each other by putting the panel and the nails. This is the bottom beam. And then the size of the plywood is 3 by 6. Here, 4 by 8 is very popular, big one, right? But in Japan, the smaller units, smaller size, 3 by 6. And then we assembled this one, but this time we didn't know anything about this, system. That's why we had more than 100 kinds of pieces. It's a lot. And then they are very close, very similar. That's why we made many mistakes. And so assemble and then try to put, then, oh my God, made a mistake, and then dismantle and then reassemble. And so those are the process. So we learned that, I think maybe, we sort of found that the lesser, the better, or the much easier, faster. So this is the last day. So they are so exhausted, but they are very happy, right? Polycarbonate finish here, or like a painted, and then polycarbonate roof, corrugated roof is translucent. That's why we can have skylights. Like this one, we put light, but above this is a skylight there. So even like without lights, we can get light from the top. So tatami mat was donated, and this is polycarbonated, windows and doors. We also made like 3 layers, and in the middle layer we put polycarbonate stuff, right? So basically handmade. But this was very tough. And then after finishing this, we just thought that, shall we continue, this project or not? Very, very, very tired. But then, fortunately, Architecture for Humanity, now the organization, I think maybe he was involved in Japan, they look at this project, and then they came to the site. And then they found that this is interesting, and then they sponsored for the next project. That's why we decided to keep on doing. So without them, maybe I stopped. Only this project, right? But this one, it's a little bit different from the former one. The structure, yes, the same. But the first one, we used a hand saw and then table saw. So we cut the pieces by myself. But it's because of the discrepancy, sometimes so hard, and you cannot enter, right? You cannot insert. But here we decided to use CNC router to cut the notches, right? So use the basic system, but we use, a CNC router to cut notches. So really nice, very easy. And then also we found that, of course, send students, wonderful, they're eager to come. But this time we decided to ask the end users, which is fishermen, because fishermen's facility here. So we asked fishermen to work for this project. And then they worked for about 2 months or 2.5 months. And that their life is, they go to the ocean 2 o'clock in the morning and then come back 10 o'clock. And they usually drink and then go to bed, right? But they work after 10 until 2, 4 hours almost every day. Then drink and then go to bed, right? So they are so helpful. Helpful. Actually, they work very hard by themselves then. But I first very scared because they are very macho and short tempered. If I made mistake, maybe just so a bit scared. But then they first said that how to do that. I don't know. This is new system, okay, but I don't know what to do. But that's why I thought that maybe easier way is to provide manual, like a building manual like this. And then, okay, like 1 hour for people, why don't you just collect these pieces and then assemble this? So exactly they're doing this, is this one. And then they're smiling, right? So they said it's like a plastic model kit. It's like again, like this, right? So it's fun because it's already prepared and then assemble. Yeah. So assemble is just an interesting process I found. So I'm so, I'm relieved because they enjoy, working for themselves. Then this Mr. Watanabe, he came every day and in his 50s. And this is dangerous. Don't do this. But this is the last day, and then we clean, all the corner of the buildings. This is the last day, and then just before this photo, I just missed the chance, but he used the chopsticks and then, roll that cloth, and then that one push into that corner, invisible corner, which is this corner. Nobody can see, but he just wanted to clean up because maybe he loves this building already, So he feels that sense of belonging already to this building. He has attachment to this building. So nobody asks him to do that, but he did. And then I found that, okay, this is a very good way. So users can build it. Then users can nurture the sense of belonging or sense of ownership. Then they can take care of it. Yep. So I found that it's very nice. So we decided from this project, always we have to include the users for the project. So this is the final day, and then we took photo, and these are all domestic cedar plywood. And then this is the opening by this, it's closed by 2 layers of plastic polycarbonate stuff. And then we put 2 layers of plastic wrapping. So called it's called bubble wrap, bubble wrap, that one. 2 layers, only 2 layers, but then sandwich, and then light comes in. So, and the insulation behind this wall, yes, 2 layers. Usually it's not good enough, but then fishermen, they're okay because it's always the very cold winter, very cold ocean, they work. So they feel no problem, it's warm enough. So then they want to show you this one. This is I took last summer. So already 10 years passed. And then the beauty is that they put additional shelf here, and then something here. So basically, they could handle, to manipulate their space by themselves because they built it. So they know how to do that, right? And then they are very proud of that. That's why once something wrong, and then they try to fix it by themselves. So I've never, ever got any phone call from them complaining. Usually like architects, okay, design and finish and then give key. And after, oh, congratulations, thank you very much, and I love you. But then 5 days later, and excuse me, can you come in? Right, this is wrong, But no phone call. It's really because they feel that they are responsible for this building. They like this building. They would like to amend this building by themselves, right? So ladies too, not only just a gentleman. We went to Myanmar after that because one of my colleagues of Keio University, she is worried about this village and then people here. Now Myanmar politically is very difficult, but this time still very safe. So like Muslim or Buddhism, Buddhists or like Christians, all just live together. But this village, because 1 year drought, another year hurricane, then they decided to move out the village and then move into this village. So they are very poor and then farmers, but then kids, many kids, and that they enjoy their life. But you can see that this house is raised because they have almost like 3 months per year, they have flood. And then they suffered, that they suffered a lot. So this is the data of the Myanmar and Japan here, and then Myanmar. The very west, we have a Pateng. It's a big city, but then on the very north of the Pateng, we have Manoheri, is the edge of the village, and they're very poor. Then this is a general problem. So it's a flood, right? Can you see? Sometimes above the floor. So it's really terrible. Then not only, I found that the big issue is not only this. We first went there and I interview and did some workshop and then some field work and stuff. We made this map. Then we found that this one is like a dry season, rainy season adults, and then dry season, rainy season young kids. And then dry season they can work, right? But then rainy season they cannot work, afternoon, right? As farmer. And then kids also, they cannot play outside because it's raining. And then what happened is that domestic violences, violence that's in home that happened. And then the worst case, kids were killed. So YMCA there reported to us, and this is a big problem. So is there any way to save kids from that kind of situation? And we started to discuss, and then we decided to build a learning center for kids. That means 24/7, they can come, anytime they can come, and they can escape from that kind of situation. So, but to do so, we have to have a raised floor, like 2 meters we just raise, and then have like a 40 square meter learning center for kids. And then, but users are these kids, right? That's why we have to let them understand that how to build it, and then sense of ownership, of course, we have to just let them nurture. So we did workshop and we prepare 1 to 10 model in Japan and then bring it. Then we did workshop and please just touch and make anything like a plane or a house, and then they played it other than him. He didn't at all. He's interested in me, so he didn't work. But then eventually, okay, and then let's make a house. And then we, get together and then build this house. So the building method is exactly the same with the real one. So they now understand and they built this one, right? So next day, we start to construct the real one. This is 1-to-1, but exactly the same way. That's why they know how to do that. This is my student, that is a 10-year-old, 11-year-old kids, and they work very hard, barefoot, they're strong. And actually hitting nail, they are much better than my students, I'm surprised that they're very good. Then work together and just the structure part, 2 weeks we've done, 40 square meters, it's very fast. And then everything 3 weeks. But this foundation, concrete foundation, we couldn't. That's why we had to ask the local carpenter, and it cost a lot. So almost the same price with above, So always a foundation is the issue. But we couldn't solve this one. And so, but we had to live with this situation. But exterior wall, we found that woven bamboo, which is very strong, and then it lasts usually 7-8 years. That's why we decided to use this one. And then we put there, and then structure part, of course, we designed and we provided. Then exterior wall, rooftop metal corrugated roof, and then the bamboo wall, they're sort of a local material, which is very important for us because they have to amend by themselves. We cannot come back, right? If we use our material, they cannot replace by new one. Then they started to, okay, I cannot use this. And then later they may say that, please just take it down, right? That happens many, many places. So we decided to use local material as much as possible for this type of building. So then since then we decided, okay, after this project, we decided to use exterior wall as much as possible local. Then this is a boy. This is the last day again. Everybody's cleaning. He didn't, but he just occupied this window and then feels very satisfied. It looks very satisfied, I found, because I believe that he doesn't have any place at home. And he came every day, the construction. He didn't work at all, but he came every day. He just played around, Then that's why he feels something, okay, this is my place, maybe, Then everybody's working, but he occupied this one. This is my place. So I think very important to provide that kind of space for kids. And so I'm so glad that he just, stays here and then feel like comfortable. And so he sat here, this window. It's for kids, young kids, small kids. And then this window is a middle kid, and then adults, and then ventilation. So we provide several places for several generations. And yeah, then opening day, we really celebrate, the opening. And I didn't expect this many people stand on the terrace. Very dangerous. It's bent. I was here, I'm here, but I didn't step, dangerous, So I just didn't. And I was so scared, if it falls. But the next day, it returned. Can you see? It's straight now. Okay, that's wood. So the beauty of the wood. So I like, of course I have a structure engineer, and then he said, no problem, this one is strong enough. And I, of course, believed him. But I was so scared. So now they are using this as a sort of, again, kids community, kids learning center. So everybody, anytime they can come. But at the same time, like some years ago, 5-6 years ago, in Myanmar, they had big flood and many people died. But luckily, many people escaped to this building in this village, and then nobody was killed. And this was, at that time, we found out this was the highest position at the village, 2 meters from here, but that was the highest. This is the highest. So I'm so proud that this helped their lives. We moved to Philippines. Then Philippines is the country where a lot of earthquakes and tsunami, natural disasters. Compared to even Japan, they have more. So this one, earthquake and then tsunami happened, but this one broken by earthquake. And I can see that landslide there. This is a Bohol Island. So we went there and then saw the situation and talked with the local, mayor and stuff and people. And then we just, okay, let's go and then do some. Again, this is the house for the community. But this time, luckily, Japanese government sent this CNC router to Bohol State University. We found that, but nobody uses. That's why, okay, let's use this one. And then Philippine, actually plywood quality is quite good. Japanese plywood is actually we import Philippines plywood. So quality wise, it's quite good. So we knew that. So we got the plywood and then CNC router. Then we started to think that maybe advanced system, maybe we can use, and then try to maximize the usage of wood. So like divided into 2 or divided into 4. So automatically we can just have the module, right? Then we can just adjust this and that. Some leftover piece, like a triangulish thing, this one is maybe for the furniture. So that maybe fan shaped furniture. So we just try to use as much as possible. Then this time, the nursery home. So these are the clients, 3-year-old. younger than Myanmar's. And then, okay. Then we decided to do some workshop in making a book stand, pen stand, using the same material, same system, and same machine we used. Then we did workshop. Then at the same time, we explain 1 to 10 model again, right? And then she's speaking English to them, and they maybe don't understand English at all. But the serious eyes, can you see? So they may understand, they have understood this one. So I like that kind of seriousness, they try to understand, right? And then not so difficult. Then we assemble this building by ourselves and with kids. And so sometimes many kids here and sometimes. And then 40 square meters, this main structure, only 2 days it took. So it's very fast. But then to put this bamboo wall, we had to put the substructure after that. We didn't expect that. But unfortunately, I can show you later, but then usual joint we use, and the usual joint is a surface and this one coming out, and then wedge insert from outside. That's why, this joint is coming out from the surface. So we couldn't put the bamboo because bamboo is very soft, right? To put the bamboo, we had to put the substructure. It took 1 week. So, and then the owner or mayor was disappointed. So we were so sad, but we had to do that. That's why we just cut the bar and then put there and then finish this one. So this is a learning process. Actually, we thought that, okay, 100% fine, but it's not. So interface, our system and the sort of material, always we have to think about an interface. Otherwise, we fail like this. It's not a failure, but it took another 1 week, right? Then this is the interior. This, you can see this like a joint coming out and insert. So this is outside exactly the same. So from the surface, this coming out and then insert the wedge, right? But interior, we use bamboo stuff like ceiling. And so we try to sort of make a local architecture there. Then you can see this fan shape furniture, which is leftover pieces, triangle shape. That's why fan shape. Then we can make this furniture for them. This is a night view. This is the elevation. And this looks very local. So I found that, this is one of the local buildings, it became. But local leader said, sad, he said, because I wanted to have some Japanese building here. And no, this is fantastic. You should be proud of this. This is your culture, your building, right? So be proud of that. And a friend of mine kindly, just tried to visit this building because he wanted to see this one, the real. So we went there. So he tried to find it. He couldn't first. And then he just passed and, passed it because it seems very local. So I just, okay, we did it. So I think maybe architecture, of course, we can have an outstanding, beautiful, iconic building we can build. But at the same time, like this building, maybe melting in that local, that has another sort of a value. I think maybe I have to go faster. Then we came back to Tokyo, Japan, and we were asked to build a beach house. This all, again, washed away. But 5 years after, they decided to have their own beach festival. So issue is that they would like to use membrane on top of that. Then again, if the joint is sticking out, we cannot use membrane, right? So we have to think about how to make that kind of flush surface here. Then we started to think, and then we found that there's one way. This is the one. Actually, Philip kindly made this for us. So usually here, and they insert here, and then this hole comes out like this, then insert a wedge like this, and then fix, right? But this one, we just decided not to push this one, it's surface here, flush. Then insert this piece from outside, but then it's stuck in the middle because it's half dug here, right? So it's stuck in the middle because of this thickness of this board is about 1/2 inch. So we can have this piece stuck in the middle, right? Then insert the wedge from inside here. If so, everything fixed, then you can have a flush surface, which actually we thought and then we made it. That's why we could finish this surface flat. So he's now making from inside, he's hitting the wedge. So I think maybe this is sort of an invention. Then I like that kind of idea. We hit that sort of a wall and then try to think how to just go over the wall or go around the wall. Then we decided to, okay, we have to think, and then we could make this. So I'm very proud of this detail. And then this time we finally came to the single number 6. Its component just only 6 kinds of board. That the originally more than 100, but then this piece just repeats one, then that's why only 6 pieces. Of course, the bottom one is different. This is the LVL, this thick one, but we could sort of minimize the kinds of pieces. And this is the high school kids and the workshop. Then they could have events like this. This one, another one we built, non-nailed beach house near our school. And non-nail means, of course, the former one, actually, we didn't use nail, but then usual beach house, this one, they just assemble with nails. But then when dismantle the traditional, people just throw nails away at the beach, and it's very dangerous. So many people, many kids, got some hurt. So one NPO thought that why don't we have a non-nail beach house? If we can have all the beach house non-nail, if so, no hurt, no problem. So we decided to use no nail. So then we assemble again with kids, and they're using a rubber hammer, and then we could make it. So membrane and some like 20. But then we are some like adults, of course, and then this one is 9 meters by 10 meters. But the structure is only this one, many adults, only 3 hours we could assemble. It's very fast, right? But then we had Olympic Games 2021. Then Olympic game was over. So they said that, okay, I don't need this, and throw it away. Oh my God, this is not sustainable. So I decided to just, ask many people, and one ranch, campsite, they accepted. They could accept this one. So we went there last summer and assembled by ourselves. It took 3 days, but 7, 8 students, and then built that one. So it's a lot of cow there. That's why I put this, right? So recycle. That's very important again. And we started to think that maybe even like a wedge, this system is a little bit too complicated. That's why we can make this much simpler. Otherwise, people cannot use this. So this is minimal house and made of like 14 sheets. And the way of assemblage is like this. First, put the base diagonal way, and then insert wall 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then put the floor, and then put the structure above to fix. Then no wedge, and it takes only 30 minutes. It's about 6 square meters. So it's very fast. So within my class, hour and a half, we assemble and then disassemble in a class. So this can be applied to some other case, but usually that kind of a emergency house, government cannot provide money to keep 200, 300, because who knows that when that disaster happens. That's why they cannot pay that kind of money to provide this type of house. So the best way is we use that kind of house as regular way, ordinary way. So like tea house or like ramen, vendor. A lot of ramen shops here, Toronto. I'm surprised. Anyway, so yatai is a vendor store, right? Or then they use it, but then once something happened, they just dismantle and then send it to the site. Then they can use it as a temporary house. That is our idea. So always like we have to think that daily use. Of course, we have to think about emergency, but we first have to think that how to use this house daily. Then how to send it to, how to contribute to this, to that kind of place or people later, which is very important. So this is another one, which is the application of that minimal house. We went to Slovenia because Slovenia, Croatia, there are people coming from Syria, coming up the Balkans Peninsula. They stuck there before entering the Shenzhen area, Europe. And then they needed house. So I talked with a local university, Ljubljana University, and then we arranged the house. And then this is they're similar to the minimal house, but this flat roof. And then we designed that joinery. Then we can have like a consecutive, sort of a longer house, connected. So this is a trial to make that kind of a house. So we did a workshop with local high school kids. And this is my student, and he designed and built this one. It's a two connected. It's about 11 square meters. And then we painted, so-called NASA paint. It's very white. And then summertime, reflect the sunlight and then keep this inside cooler. Like it's a single one and then 2 units combined. And so this is a test house. And then if it works pretty well, and local government can just repeat this. Then this is a local high school kids, and then they provide furniture, right, inside. Then this is connected room, 2 units. So their bedroom and here living room. Very small, but they can have their own house. I think maybe better than tent, because tent it's very temporary, but this is more like smell of wood and then hot wall, and which is more comfortable. And then at the same time, we built a community house, which is again built at the same high school, and they provided machines, and so it's more like a flat. Then our sort of trial is this time is a foundation. So always we have to use concrete, but this time we try not to use concrete. Then we discussed, and then we found that stone cage, and then below grade is about 1 meter deep. And then we dig a hole and put the cage and then put the stone. We took stone from the river and then put stones, and then it's strong enough. So this can be sort of a foundation. And if we want to move it, we just take all the stones out and then cage out and then move. So it's a dry system, which is very helpful. And then we found out this works pretty well, but we couldn't be in time. That's why we bought some concrete here. Sometimes we have to, to do some. So again, this is sort of trial, and then this is sort of, for me, it's a trial for foundation. Then we work together. Then we finish this one. Summertime is just open. It's a pavilion. We have similar space in Japan, so-called engawa. It's inside, outside sort of merges. So summertime is very comfortable. Then wintertime, it will be closed, and we put some like a sandwiched, polycarbonate door, and it openable. Then last project of Veneer House is that, until what time? So, okay, thank you. So the community house in Indonesia, and they had, again, year 2018, they had big earthquake, and the same Philippines and then Indonesia also, there are a lot of earthquake happening, and 60,000 people die in a day because the land dropped. This one is about 4 or 5 meter high, right? This land used to be that height, but it dropped and then destroyed, and then tsunami came. So really, really difficult situation. I had that time one student from Indonesia, so she just went there and then talked to them and what we can do, and so and then I contacted local architects. Architects usually have an architect association. Yeah, they are so helpful, and then we just contact somebody and then connected and then find, okay, maybe this is the place where we can work. Then we went there and did some intensive research about local architecture. And interestingly, we found that triangle shape community house movable. It's how to, like a 50 people just carry and then move. It's very interesting. That's why the base is very small, right? Foundation. So somehow they have some culture that movable community house, not only Indonesia. So we found that, triangle, okay. And then we just mimic the shape, triangle. And we found one CNC router in the island, Palu, but it's 20 hours south, by car. It's far, but we went there and then got the piece and then came back again. Then we started to build. Of course, we can carry if 50 people are here, but then another way is dismantle and then carry one by one. It's much easier. So we worked with local Tadulako University, college students, studying architecture, and many of them, from local, or some of them our students, some American, interns. She comes, to our school as intern, and she joined. Right, and then assemble like this. She is my student, Indonesian. She is a translator, and she works very hard to just make things happen. So always we have key person, local, and communicate the person or the people there. Then we finish this one. About 1 month. Then, but the beauty of this building is that really on the top of the hill, and then we can really have a beautiful view. But at the same time, it's open. So not so difficult in terms of the structure. If it is closed, you have to have a very strong column and stud, to be against that wind load. But here is a tunnel, so it's easy in a sense. And we did workshop with kids and then make triangle chairs, and then they paint. Right, something like this. And 5 times per day, 90% of them are Muslim. So they play here like this. So I have to close this venue house project, but we did several other places like Nepal, they had earthquake again. Then, or like Africa, Congo, but unfortunately no Canada. Right. So, but we had a project in Portland because of homeless people. So we discussed and then tried to sort of work with local university, but unfortunately we couldn't make it. So I think maybe in city we have a similar issue, homeless people's home. So that's what I think maybe we have to tackle for now. Second fold is the GSD, Harvard GSD Graduate School of Design Studio. I taught and then finished last week, 2 weeks ago, because it's a very short 7 weeks studio. So we started late January and then finished March 9th. So only 7 weeks. So very quick, boom, boom. And then usually it's so quick, that's why it's so difficult to make something. But then our challenge is to make one-to-one place, for you. So it's really challenging. And then the process, find a potential site at the GSD, inside or outside. And then study the placeness, means the context of the place, because you have to be there. You would like to be there. And then what kind of space you need, right? Analyze. Then design, then build, and then stay, and then get feedback. within 7 weeks. It's really tough, but what we are doing here with Will is making things in 3 days, not 3 weeks. So it's really challenging, but it's really nice. So, touching the real material and then think how this behaves, then think about the space and then try to make it. You can make many mistakes, it's fine, but then just try. Trying things is very, very important. So the first week we investigated the site itself. That means GSD, and then walk around and then try to find the corners, and we did. Or the second week is we try to find many materials. In the GSD there are many left over, so we could find many interesting things. And then week 3, do some demonstration, right? Simulation. So this is her project is make a bubble, inflatable space at her desk, because she feels very uncomfortable with the fluorescent light, and so she needs to have some pink, color space. She says, right? Or we visited some MIT lab, and here's MIT Professor Skylar Tibbetts, and he kindly gave us feedback. He is into many materials. Then some of course, simulation digitally. Then almost last week, the very cold winter, they are tackling, this mesh stuff outside. It's a big challenge. And then pinkish one is for her space, right? And then last week, they try to make things. So I think maybe this is a very difficult challenge, but I really appreciate. This is the final review. So one lady, Celeste, wanted to make a big sort of a half dome to have some sound from the bottom of this concrete, chamber. Air goes, air intake, and she is interested in like a movement of air and then sound of that. So she set this one here and then like this, and then try to listen to it. It's away from her desk. So she wanted to be alone or with some very close friend. So that's her project. And then Mai's project is a big sort of a cushion stuff. And then at her desk, she just would like to sleep just below the table. So let's put this one here and then close and then sleep. And then take it out and then mingle with some other friends. So attach in. So her sort of material is a cloth, right? And then paper is very Japanese tea house, right? So it's a paperwork, Kevin, and he folds and then origami stuff and then make a sort of a tea house. And then have some lights, mylar paper. And then this is tires, inflatable. So I think maybe this type of challenges, I really appreciate. And this one, I can show you some video. Can you hear? So they pair and they are tackling a metal mesh. The metal mesh is usual mesh, but interestingly, this is expandable, but this way is fixed. So then they try to sort of use that kind of character and then how to make that space, make their own space, but not only just for two, but for many. And they usually fences, put the border, from one person to another, right? But they would like to make a sort of gathering space using the metal mesh. So it's the sort of change the notion of the mesh. So and then they make a hole, which is the entrance, and then connect, and then so they work very hard because they found this material week 2, and then works for 5 weeks, and then try to do this some experiment, and they need many people. Only 2 cannot do that, so we just get together and make this, and so they lean against this. Yeah, they can, but only you cannot, or 2 impossible, but 5, 6, 7, then they can lean against, and then they feel comfortable, right? So this type of sort of experiment they wanted to do, and they're quite successful. And interestingly, they bought this one in Home Depot. And within 1 month, they can return. So they just cut the cut part is, they cannot return. Yeah, that part they cannot return, but they just take it out and then reconnect it and then roll. And then out of 5, they return 4 rolls. It's very sustainable. Okay. Right. The last thing is a student built campus. Very quickly, I just want to show you. Student built campus is done by our students and our faculty members and then admin people. And it's more like a voluntarily, I should say, like a guerrilla manner, in guerrilla manner. So, okay, why don't we make our campus? And then student built campus, nobody, nobody registers, it's not registered. That's why it's a little bit bluery, right? This is because not registered, not recognized as a formal action. So it's more like really interesting students work. But what we've done is that we got 1 extra site outside of our campus. And then we tried to use that space to build our own campus in wood. And because it's wood is easier, and again, the same sort of a concept, digital fabrication, and then creative destruction, then a local. So these are the concept. And then very important thing is this, usually like a campus is we come here, study, and then go home. But our campus is very far from the city, but they have to go home. So we decided, okay, why don't we just stay here and then study like whole night? So don't have to go back home. Right. So it's a more like a dorm, but it's not dorm. It's like a meeting space. It's like this. And then until morning, we stay here and then discuss, drink, eat, yes. Then discuss it. So we started this movement, and then finally school said, okay, why don't we use this money? Then they start to construct this, first building. But first building, school didn't allow us to touch structure, roofing, no, possible. But cleaning, fine. Carrying, yes, there's carrying, right? But still, like we just wanted to be involved in this, construction or design too. So we designed this, and then this is a model which they made, and then this is the reality. So we made this. Of course, professional carpenter, of course, we hired, but then students just joined to this building, and then this is interior, and this is the reality. This is my lab's meeting. Died already here. Right. And then they painted sort of a whiteboard paint by themselves, not the professional one. Right. And then at night we worked together, and then we did some workshop. And so this is the place, really we just can be involved in. Then this is the second one, which is the veneer house. And then these people actually seems like professional, but it's not. They are students. They had to wear, their clothes, right? Seems very old, but he's very young. And then this time they could touch. This is a column, right? So they could just nail and they make column, because the second one, school just started think that, maybe you guys can do. Then gradually we can just, go further and further. So we could build a veneer house, and like this is a tatami mat room or kitchen. So I'm so proud of them because they could make it, and then they just started. And then this is another my lab's meeting talking about veneer house, right? So I think maybe if we can work very hard, then if school understands that sort of intention, and then they just can be helpful and then make this type of space. Right. So we made this furniture right together. Okay, so campus is now like this. This is the original Fumihiko Maki's design, beautiful campus, concrete. But we built this part made in wood. And the first one is this one. This one is the veneer house. This one, Shigeru Ban's lab design. This is a paper tube. This is a paper tube one. And so this is the our graduates, will be OBOG, alumni design this. So it's a sort of a students, and then not only students, but faculty members and admin people that can work together and then create some new place. So this type of challenge, actually, I would like to share. I wanted to share today. So you don't have to read this, but basically, I just wanted to tell today is that don't hesitate. Just do it. Just do it is taken by night. That's why I said do it anyway. But the difference, just do it and do it anyway. I have to discuss, I need another 1 hour, to discuss, but doing something by yourself or using your hands is very important. So you have very respectful technicians here, and it's so lucky. We have some, but it's very limited. And so I think maybe you can really utilize this sort of environment, but please try to do something, by yourself, starting using your hand. That's very important. So then you may feel that, okay, I can do that. Then after that, work together, then you feel that the sense of belonging again, and then sense of community. So I think maybe, feeling, we are all together and we work together, and then sense of community unity is also very important. So I just wanted to stress this part for tonight. Thank you very much.
So questions? Are you? Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Mr. Kobayashi. Thank you so much for your talk. I think your work is definitely very admirable. So I have a question about temporary housing. So a few years ago, I was in Japan for a project that was on urban planning and like natural disaster relief. So we actually went to the Iwate prefecture, and we went to Kobayashi, and we were able to kind of see how the city was about like 5-6 years after the earthquake in 2011. And of course, there was like a lot of like debris, and there's still a lot of like damaged buildings. And even after so much time, a lot of it was just still kind of left there. And so it was clearly still like a rebuilding process. So I remember when we were speaking to the people that lived in town about their experiences with the earthquake and what was like after, we were talking about temporary housing. And it seemed like a lot of the shelters that were built for them that were meant to be temporary, they still lived in it like many years after. So when it comes to like temporary housing, is it like a couple months, or is it like a couple years, or is it many years, right?
Yeah.
You don't really know because it's like temporary.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, how do you think we can kind of bridge that gap between temporary to permanent, or something even like long lasting?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. First, like the notion of temporariness is all different. Me and then maybe Will and some other, all different. When I went to Italy, there's an earthquake, Amendola. Then we work with Torino Politecnico, and then try to build one building. And then I went to the site and then tried to enter the site, and the workers said, no, you cannot. Why? And your shoes is not good. It's legally prohibited. Right? And then I was surprised that, okay, totally different culture, and I understand. Then I talked to city people. We are proposing to build a wooden house, and then she asked me, how long does it last? Well, 30 years as a permanent building in Japan. And then she said, oh, temporary. And 30 years is temporary in Italy. Yes, of course. Stone built in 2000 years. Right? So 30 years is nothing. Right? So I found that the notion of the length or the duration always varies. So we cannot just define, okay, this is temporary, this is permanent. Okay, where is the border, boundary, right? But at the same time, like Ise Shrine, it's just only 20 years, but it lasts 1,350 years, right? Not the same building, but then same space, same notion, right? So I think maybe it's a really interesting discussion about temporariness, right? And in the case of temporary houses, the issue is that the government provide house basically for 2 years first, then they extend it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Now, 12 years passed, but still some people living, right? So because of some economic, some financial conditions, they have to live there, or like they don't have any family, or so it depends. But then we have to really think that in that case, maybe we have to provide even temporary houses, but not just a steel, cold, modular. It's modular house is fine, but then temporary houses. So how to provide the house, and then how to update the house, or how to manage to take care of the house. I mean, take care of the people. That's what we have to discuss. Then at the same time, like after temporary houses are used, and the local government, they decided to discard it, no reuse. So, and then we found that the problem, so we just collected. It's a module system. So it's very nice to like restructure and then make another structure. So we use it for Olympic Games, some pavilion there. So there are many issues related to temporary houses, but I'm sorry, but I don't know if, I've answered, the question, but always that temporariness or temporary houses, how to elongate that duration or the usage is always the issue. So I'm sorry, but maybe I don't have any answer.
Hi. I think something really beautiful about this way of working is like just the proximity you get with the client base, which is ultimately like the end users and the builders. And I think that's really rare in architecture that those overlap. But so I guess my question to you is, how do you find these kind of places where, I mean, a lot of the times you're like, oh, well, an earthquake happened here. So do you just, or, and I guess you reach out to like a university and see if you can get something going. But I'm curious about like ways of enabling that, and especially in maybe places that aren't necessarily struck by disaster, or I guess like maybe accessible in, let's say, cities and things like that, where the space is kind of commodified differently in the sense that you don't have as much like open land. But there's still, I think, a desire for people to get together and like create space. And if you've thought about, like how this kind of way of thinking gets applied into more like dense or urban contexts.
So we started from the disaster situation, and then we went to several places to sort of help the disaster recovery. But at the same time, we found that in city, even without any earthquake or tsunami or nothing, but then they have problems. We have problems, right? Then how to tackle that problem? That's what I think maybe we have to really think, and it's not so easy. But then difficulties are different. In disaster situation, we have several kinds of difficulties, right? In the city, different kind, but again, that's sort of many difficulties you have. So first, like we have to really see the problems and then try to understand, what's the issue, and then try to tackle, from what part. That's what always we do, because go to Philippines and then I don't know anything about Philippines or Indonesia, nothing. But go there and then see people and then listen, and then we sort of gradually understand the way to go, right? So I think maybe in city, we tend to think that we understand city, we know the city, but actually that situation, for example, like homeless people, we actually don't know much. So we go there and then see people. If I would like to do, so I go there and then see people and then try to understand the situation, and then what part, you can open the window, then you can. So I cannot know, now I cannot tell you how to, but that's why, do it anyway is that, okay, go and then see and then tackle as much as possible. You are kicked out sometimes, but again, you go and then go. So you need to be patient. Otherwise, thinking, and then just do it and then, oh, done. Not so easy. Right? So many times you just try and then fail, try. That's what you have to repeat. But at some point, you understand the situation. Okay, this is the way to go. So maybe, so city, yes. I saw some like San Francisco area, right? Long time, I'm sorry. But yeah, always like a homeless people's home is the issue for me. So, but we haven't solved that problem yet. So always, I think I would like to, oops, yeah. So here, Poland, Portland, I missed that chance, but they really have a big issue. Not only now Poland, San Francisco too, maybe Toronto too. So each city has each different difficulties, but I think maybe, yeah, I'm sorry, but simple answer is just go there and see. This is not answer, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This morning, we actually had a talk from another architect in Japan, Mio Tsuneyama, and she has her own practice,
Mhm.
and she's been working on on her own house with very small but continuous changes for
Mhm.
a period of time. And her approach to architecture is trying to extend the life of the building, because she was telling us that the average lifespan in Tokyo is
Quite short.
27 years for a building, which to us seemed quite short. So while her approach is to extend the life, is from your work, is it to make it more efficient to be faster, or like to keep perhaps a shorter lifespan, but to be more efficient, or are you also extending the lifespan of buildings?
Okay, what the difference between hers and,
Sure.
okay. I'm interested, of course, use one building and, because the beauty of wooden building is that it's easy to expand or just detract, go further or like shorter, and also people has attachment, of course, to the house, family, right? And also in Japan, we tend to sort of have a sort of affection to the land and then the neighborhood very much. So I try to understand, I try to sort of not preserve, but conserve sort of our life. Once you live there, then we understand the culture there, neighborhood, then try to be there as long as possible. So the house, the same. Yes, of course, if you like to expand, and then the way to expand, yes, there must be, right? But at the same time, sometimes like the situation is like this, all of a sudden that's gone, right? So how to provide house is another different sort of a problem. But interestingly, like I say, like short-term disaster or long-term disaster. Because a long-term disaster is more like deterioration of one village, getting less and less and less. But this is time span is different, but then similar sort of issue, because they have to really think about how to live there. This one is a short-term disaster, so which you have to really quickly solve the problem. Otherwise, we lose sort of our life, right? So I stress this sort of a relatively shorter period, but at the same time, we try to make this system repeatedly. We can, like for example, like a beach house, just only 3 months in a year, but then repeatedly we use it, right? And then replace one by one. If some parts get rotten, if so, you can replace by new one, and then you can just make this forever, right? Every year you can use it. So I think maybe that way of keeping the house, there are many ways. So I think maybe this is more like a repetitive, way of using and then dismantle and assemble and dismantle, assemble. So the notion of, again, the temporariness is very important issue for me. But I'm preserving this today. I didn't show you, but I'm working. He just kindly mentioned that I'm working on one rural village, and then they have a long history, and I'm now maintaining 110 years old local folk house, and it's beautiful but deteriorated, gradually. So we go there and they use new material. They hate that plywood, but we just brought in and then fix everything, including introducing a new building system. So yes, that's also a very important issue, I believe. Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. Again, I didn't answer to your questions.
Were you going to say thank you? Okay, sorry. Anyone gonna-
On behalf of the student body, faculty, and staff community at the Department of Architectural Science, we would like to thank you, Hiroto, for sharing your work with us. Your words this evening have left us with a greater understanding of how architects can work with the communities and build with uncertainty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.